So the second approach, I used the online courses, I used the study guide. So it really helped me to be able to understand, to be able to ensure that I understood the theory, the lectures on the theory that you gave. So it was a really good approach for me on the second.
Hi, Cecilia. Thanks a lot
Hello.
for taking this call. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. And first of all, congratulations on passing your FE Electrical and Computer exam in the first attempt. I really appreciate if you could walk us through your exam preparation journey. So when did you graduate, Cecilia? How long ago?
Okay, so I graduated 10 years ago in 2011 precisely. Yeah, I actually studied back in Nigeria. So I graduated from a university back in Nigeria.
Okay, so 2011, so that's
yes,
almost 10
2011.
years.
Yes,
10 plus
exactly.
years.
Exactly.
And in terms of your FE Electrical and Computer exam preparation, what prompted you to take this exam?
Okay, so because I graduated in Nigeria and I moved to Canada early 2020, for me to be able to be registered as an electrical engineer here in Canada, I have to like take exams or either take the NCEES exams or take the exam that is being organized by the body here in precisely New Brunswick. So I decided to take the FE exam because most of the job application, you see the requirements. You have to be either an electrical engineer in training, or you have to have your P engine. So that actually was what prompted me to take the exam and just to get registered with the body here in New Brunswick.
Right. So you passed this exam in the second attempt. Your first attempt was when?
The first attempt was actually in October 2020. That was just 1 year ago, yeah.
Right. And in the second attempt, so what did you use in the first attempt? And what was your study approach in the first one and the second attempt?
Okay, so the first attempt, I didn't actually use I was using a textbook and it wasn't outlined. I would say my first attempt was actually poor. It was a poor preparation, to be honest. So I came across a textbook that solved some past questions, some questions. So my approach was I read through the notes. I read a little about the theory, and then I was focusing more on solving the questions. I actually solved the NCEES past questions, and then I walked through a lot of questions. But I would say that I was walking through the questions, but most of the questions I wasn't getting it right. So I just looked through the questions. When I didn't get it right, looked through the answers. But you know, when you get into the examination hall and you see a different kind of question without understanding the theory behind it, you might not be able to get it. So the approach for the first time was very poor, to be honest. So when I got the result for the first and I realized that I didn't pass, I had to, what approach? I need to change my approach. I need to study smart. I need to be able to know how to make the second one worthwhile. So I went on Google, searched, how to get through FE Electrical and Computer exam. And luckily I came across your course. I came across people who are taking your course and they were able to scale through. So I decided to go for it. I bought the online course, I think around July, I am correct, or before July. And then I went through it. I saw the outline you did for, 3 to 4 months study guide, and you were able to outline it precisely. Today, the concept you did was very relatable because you did not put like, you have to study 20 hours a week to be able to get through it. You said, you need at least 15 hours a week to be able to get through it. So I just went through it, I gave myself time that within 4 months, I should be able to get through it. And the funny thing is, I had already registered for the exam even before I came across your course. And luckily for me, it was right on time. So yeah, so the second approach, I used the online courses, I used the study guide. So it really helped me to be able to understand, to be able to ensure that I understood the theory, the lectures on the theory that you gave. So it was a really good approach for me on the second time. So I really felt prepared, well prepared on the second time, even though I was a bit nervous, but yeah, I still felt more prepared than the first approach.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So use the course in conjunction with the study guide. So essentially you were
Yes,
going through the lectures, and as in the course I mentioned that you need to adopt an active learning style. Don't just sit back. Um, Go through the explanations, stop the lectures when I am solving a problem, and then do the quiz, and then do the mini exams, and then you also use the study guide, this third edition of the study guide in the background, which is
exactly. Yes, yes,
700 practice problems.
yes.
So it took you roughly, so you registered for the course in July, you started preparing with these resources, and you took the exam roughly
Oh,
4 months later, right?
yes,
4 or 5
exactly.
months.
4 months,
Okay,
4 months actually, 4 months.
right. And yeah, the nervousness, I mean, it's part of the game when you take any exam, right?
You're right.
Whether you're 110% prepared or 50% prepared. Well, the more you prepare, the more comfortable you would be. But I mean,
Exactly.
it's just, I think it's a psychological thing which is very, very difficult to overcome. But hopefully, as you said, I mean, this time around you were better prepared, and obviously the result speaks for itself, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
made it
right.
happen. In terms of the exam preparation, which topics and were you having initially more difficulty with, and which topics were your weak areas with sections?
So I would say the sections that I had difficulty in would be the computer section, the computer network, computer systems, and algorithm. Just because I am really not into the computer thing, so it took me a while,
Mhm.
and the terms, it was actually a lot, especially the computer networks. If you look at the lecture notes for the computer network, it was actually a lot. So it was actually the most difficult aspect of all of the section. Other sections were average, medium,
Great.
and then easy. Yeah.
So how did you tackle it while preparing for the exam?
So to be honest, I did not really. I it, on my part, I would say that I left it towards the end. I should have probably started it in the beginning, but I left it towards the end. So I didn't even finish the lecture notes on your course for the computer system. But the ones that I the ones that I watched, I made sure that I understood it well, so that if I come across it in the exam, at least I'll be able to know that I was able to answer these questions. And if by chance I come across something that I did not study, I would be able to look through the
Reference
manual,
handbook. Yeah. Mhm.
exactly, the reference handbook, and see if I can figure it out. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's how I was able to tackle it. I did not really spend much, I did not dwell on the fact that I don't really understand or I don't really
Right.
know about all this. I didn't dwell on it so much. I
Right.
just made sure that I was able to at least have an idea of it as a whole. Yeah,
I think that's a smart approach because you didn't completely skip it and you didn't spend too much time on it either because it was a
exactly.
weak area, but you probably got it to a point where you could easily handle some of the easy questions if they came your way. And you were mentally prepared that, okay, you know what, if a tough questions come, it's a fair game because I haven't really prepared or it's not my strength. So
Exactly,
rather
correct.
than the word you use is dwelling on it, because what I find is that students, if they're like out of 17 sections, if they have 15 sections bulletproof, right, extremely well prepared, or let's say even 11 sections extremely well prepared, and there are 6 sections which are so-so or which are not that strong, they would be fixated on those six
On
sections going into the exam, during the exam, even when they're doing the morning section, they're worried about computers, right?
yeah,
Because, and that actually puts, it's not an effective way of studying, and it's not
studying.
an effective way of taking the exam, because you are reserving a portion of your mental faculties for things that are weak, but that will start impacting your strong areas as well. So you did a
Exactly.
very smart thing by sort of compartmentalizing it, right? You're like,
Right.
okay, this box of 4 or 5 questions, if I see on the exam, I might be able to handle 1 or 2, but it's not a big deal, right? If I do poorly on it, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's so that's good. I think that's a good advice. How did you manage your time?
Okay, so timing, we had a section before I went into the exam hall, which really helped me in my timing. So actually, I forgot how it was. I thought the first session was timed, and then the second section was also timed. I didn't know that you just have a 5 hour and then you manage your time as you want it. So I followed your approach. Because the first session, because I had already gone through a lot of practice questions, went through the mini exams, I realized that the first session was actually kind of easy. So what I did was, okay, before I went into the exam, I made sure at the back of my mind that if I'm able to spend at least 2 hours on the first session, give or take, it doesn't really matter, but 2 hours was what I had in mind. And then I would leave about 3 hours, 20 minutes for the second section to be able to tackle the difficult questions. So
3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
20
yeah,
minutes.
for the second section, 3 hours, 20 minutes. So that was the mindset I had before I entered into the exam hall. So the first section was roughly, I was spending about 2 minutes on a question just to be able to get through that 2 hours.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yep.
Yeah. Even though, so what I did was during the exam, if I did not know a particular question, I realized that I was spending so much time on it. I just flag it, skip it. I actually chose an answer, but then flag this and then skip it just in case I do
That's
not
good.
have time to come back to it. So I just guessed, okay, just pick an answer, but made sure that I flagged it. So I was able to get through the first session in about 2 hours, 15 minutes thereabouts. And then I went back to those questions that I flagged, looked at it critically, and some of them I could get through it. But because I had the timing in mind, so because they were not really much, I think I flagged about 6 to 7. So some of them, when I looked at it critically, I was able to get through it. But the ones I couldn't get through, I just left them alone and just went by it. So roughly I spent 2 hours, let's say 2 hours, 30 minutes on the first session. And then when I got into the second session, it was a little bit difficult, to be honest. I had so many questions flagged. And but I had about, I would say I had about 1 hour to be able to look through the questions that I flagged. So when I got through the questions that I flagged, looked through them, the ones I could solve, I looked through them and I solved them. The ones I couldn't solve, it was just about maybe 5 or 6. I just
that's really good. I mean, if you had only 5 or 6 questions that you couldn't make a head or tail out of it, right? Then it's not a bad place to be. So you did really well. You did really well on the exam.
So that was how I was able to manage my time. I did not dwell on the fact that I did not know a particular question. I just picked something just in case I couldn't get
of course.
I just picked something and then moved on and
there's no negative
came back
marking.
to it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just get through to it.
So you were not rushed for time. So you manage your time very smartly. And this is what I recommend. And a lot of students also suggested that, you know what, second half tends to be more difficult because of the nature of the topics that are there, because of the fact that you're sort of tired as well. That's my theory, right? But if you are able to save some time from the morning session and then allocate it to the second session, I think that's a winning strategy. Yeah. That's good. All right, I really appreciate it. I think people who are watching this interview would benefit from a lot of advice that you have given. And I think the underlying advice, which sort of hopefully comes through it, is the fact that you didn't give up. Okay, for you as an internationally trained engineer, all the credit goes to you for, sticking with this goal and pursuing it despite having encountered failure at first. And maybe you probably underestimated the exam at first. I know when we reviewed your diagnostics from the first attempt, after you told me that you just went through a few textbooks and resources that were not necessarily very effective. Despite that, your performance wasn't that bad. And you've been out of school for 10 plus years, right? Which at that point in time, a lot of people start to even, they don't necessarily have that level of motivation because the exam becomes more and more difficult as the years go on.
Exactly.
So I think the first advice, which you sort of didn't give, but sort of comes through, is that never give up. You have to stay consistent and you have to pursue the goal, because in the long run, even if you're at the 10-year mark, you have easily 20, 25, maybe even 30 years if you choose to, to spend in your career, right? So
Right.
look at it as an investment that you're making today for your tomorrow, and yourself tomorrow will actually be thankful for what you did today, right?
Exactly.
Uh,
Right.
and even if you're internationally trained engineer, not necessarily going through the same curriculum as in North America, as in US, and as in Canada, right? Things can always be learned, right?
Right.
There might be some aspect of your curriculum which was not covered, or there might be more emphasis here, less emphasis there, or more emphasis over there on something and less emphasis over here. But the thing is that if you have a growth mindset, if you realize that you can learn anything, which I think is a key characteristic of any engineer, problem
Yeah.
solving and the ability to continuously learn, then you can make it happen. So
Exactly.
congratulations again to you
Thank
for
you so
your
much.
hard work, and I'm sure that will pay off in the future. Thank you,
Thank
Cecilia.
you. Thank
Thanks.
you very much.